Sick of the bickering? We've got the solution. Thoughtful talk about the issues that matter in our community. Fresh Take with Josh Duclo. Be a part of the show by calling 281-1150 or email freshtake1150@gmail.com. Now, from the Myron Construction Studio, here's Josh Duclo.
And good morning. Welcome into Fresh Take. Glad to have you with us. This hour of Fresh Take is brought to you by Legal Business Edge. Find attorney Sarah DeBruin at 2631 North Meade Street in Appleton, or find her online at legalbusinessedge.com. Legal Business Edge, a practice for your purpose. So glad you are with us today, and it's kind of going to be a hot one. We already have 78 degrees here at the Myron Construction Studio, so it's going to be toasty. Guess what? It's going to feel like July. I love it. Yes, I know I'm still Team Zero, but I can take a few hot days in the summer. That's what it's all about. That's what it's for. And of course, we've got Zach working the boards for us this morning. Good morning, Zach.
Good morning, Josh.
And our very own news director, Mike Kemeter, back with us this morning. Good morning, Mike.
How's it going?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Awesome. Doing fine.
Still hanging in there these early mornings. Well, good, because we've got some interesting stories we want to talk about. First one is a resolution to a bit of a mystery about a judge here in Outagamie County. Judge Gage announced he'd be retiring in the midst of his term, and so it fell to the governor to appoint a replacement, and he's made his decision.
Outagamie County District Attorney Carrie Schneider will be the next judge to take the bench in Outagamie County. Again, as you said, appointed by Governor Walker.
Yeah.
She's been the county's DA for over 14 years. And
that's quite a record in public service already. 14 years now. DA is an elected position.
Yes.
And judges are typically elected.
Yes.
Because she's taking over midterm, there was an appointment.
Right.
Because I know when I saw some of these stories posted on Facebook yesterday, a lot of people were saying, wait, aren't judges voted on? And they are.
Yes.
Except when one resigns in the middle of a term.
Exactly. Then the appointee will be up for election as well.
Right. So Carrie Schneider, the current Outagamie County DA, has now been appointed to be a county judge. And when the term she is completing is over, she will stand for election, as any judge normally would. Right? So she'll be up for election.
Yeah. I need to look it up to see if she would have to fill out the term or if she would be up again.
Just whenever the next election is. I see. Okay.
I need to look into that.
Okay. So, but regardless, the voters will have a say on this. And if there's somebody who wants to challenge her, they'll have that opportunity when she stands for election, just as they would up against any judge that serves here in Wisconsin.
Well, and there was an application process before the appointment, too, so people could apply to the governor's office, and then they will whittle it down to some finalists, and they have an interview with the governor, and he makes his decision.
Yeah. I think people would probably be surprised to know just how many governor-appointed roles there are in the state total. I mean, vacancies are one thing, but there are dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of positions that the governor has to appoint on boards and commissions and different task forces, and then different roles at different levels of government.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not even getting into state agencies where you have the secretary, deputies, and then there are some other people under those positions that are appointed as well.
Yeah, exactly. This is something that we every once in a while will surface at the federal level in news, talking about the thousands of roles that are for executive appointment that have yet to be filled in the federal government, where the State Department and other agencies have literally hundreds of open positions that have not yet been filled in the Trump administration.
Like the Homeland Security job that Sheriff Clark was talking about taking, or claimed that he
said he was under consideration for.
So that he was appointed to, and then it didn't work out.
That's right. That's right. So there's a lot of these appointments that go on, and when there is a vacancy, when somebody resigns, there's another local example of this. The county treasurer.
County treasurer, yes. So what happened when Jack Voigt resigned? The board decided to make the deputy the interim treasurer until they're going to hold a special election in the spring of next year.
Right, which is only 1 year into the 4-year. Oh, wait. Is the election going to be in the fall because it's a partisan position, or would it be in the spring?
I'm pretty positive it's in the spring.
In the spring, okay.
Yep.
And so again, that's partway.
Let me double check on that, but I'm pretty
that's partway into this term that County Treasurer Voigt left because he resigned. And so because he left that position open, they needed to appoint a replacement. The county board could have decided to hold a special election right at that time, but instead they decided they wanted to appoint someone in the interim until they could have an election at a normal election time, as opposed to holding a special election just for that office.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that would have been cost about $40,000-$50,000,
Right, yeah.
and they did not want
Yeah.
to do that. And you're talking about another appointment because Carrie Schneider is taking
Yes.
the judgeship. Governor Walker will be appointing a new district attorney for Outagamie County.
To replace Carrie Schneider, whoever that appointee is will then also have to run the next time that office comes up
Right.
for election again. So lots of moving chairs here, or musical chairs, or however you want to think about it, people moving through these elected positions. But it's good that people pay attention to the fact that you really have to be up to speed on these things if you care about this stuff. You know, I think when judges come up for election, I don't know that a lot of people do a lot of research or think a lot about who they're voting for judge. In fact, a lot of times judges are not challenged. They're often running unopposed.
Right.
And yet, when Governor Walker gets to appoint someone to be a judge, suddenly a lot of people are paying attention because they have certain feelings about Governor Walker and they don't like the partisanship and all these things. This is just how it works. And I think it's interesting when you have elected officials that are as polarizing as a Governor Walker, as a President Trump. Suddenly people pay a lot more attention to the details of how the government works.
Well, and it's been really interesting too when he's appointed people in Madison and to the Dane County court as a judge. They've had opponents that have literally run ads. This guy has been appointed by Governor Walker.
As if the simple act of being appointed by the governor is somehow impugns your integrity or undermines your credibility.
That was the claim.
Oh, gotta love it.
I think they did that
it.
in Milwaukee as well.
Yeah.
Milwaukee County.
Yeah, that makes
which would
sense.
make
When
sense.
when you're in a heavily one-sided district, that's going to be something you could talk about.
Right.
Well, speaking of governor,
Hold on.
Yeah.
Just to add, I did check on the county treasurer. That is the already scheduled election in the spring of next year.
It is. Okay, so spring 2018, you'll see the
Yes.
judge or the voting
Treasurer.
for county treasurer. Interim treasurer Trent Wolfel has already said he plans to run, and then anyone else who wants to challenge him would be welcome to run at that time as well.
Exactly.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for that story, Mike. Now, speaking of governor, we heard an official announcement of someone who's running as a Democrat for governor of Wisconsin.
He has been mentioned in recent months as a possibility. Andy Gronick, he's a businessman and entrepreneur from the Milwaukee area. He is formally announcing today that he's in.
Wow. And now, do we have a sense yet about whether or not Mr. Gronick is an entrepreneur to the extent that he would be self-funding his candidacy?
There is speculation, things that I've read that said that he might be paying for part of it.
Okay.
I did see comments that he made to the Associated Press that he does not plan to self-fund his campaign fully, but obviously he would have some money to put in if
Sure.
he felt it was necessary. But he didn't think. I'd need to pull up the article, but he didn't think that it was right for someone to come in and just self-fund their campaign either.
Okay. All right. So he would be looking for traditional fundraising or some grassroots.
An email came into our fundraising email came into our work email already today.
Didn't miss a beat. I love it. But that's how these professional campaigns work, right?
Right.
When they're ready to
Exactly.
run, they are ready to go. And day
It rolls out
one,
right away.
yeah, you hit the button and 15 things go out that have been
His
frankly,
website's up and running already.
Of course. Well, we will reach out to Mr. Gronick in hopes of getting him here for an interview in the context of a governor's race that really has yet to begin and is still more than a year away because
Right.
we're talking about an election in November of 2018.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and it sure sounds like there's going to be a Democratic primary in August of that year as well.
Right. And
That summer.
Off the top of your head, what other Democratic candidates are you aware of so far that have either announced or we're expecting will announce? Do you have a couple of
Or
those?
mulling. we had a story a few days ago. Tony Evers, the state
That's right.
superintendent of
That's right.
schools.
Yep.
Dana Wachs, he's from Eau Claire, a Democrat in the Assembly. He's
Okay.
been mentioned.
Yep.
a lot.
I've heard that name mentioned as well.
Madison Mayor Paul Soglin has talked about running. He said the only way that he would run is if he would win, or if he knew he could win. So
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Mike McCabe of the Wisconsin Democracy, formerly of the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. He was the leader of that government watchdog group for years.
Right.
He's
Kathleen
considering a run.
Weinhaut, a state senator who has run in the past.
She took out paperwork.
Okay.
She's from Alma in western Wisconsin.
Right.
Took out paperwork to make a run, but she hasn't made a formal declaration yet.
Okay. And then there's a few other current and former elected officials from the Democratic Party who there's talk about. I know Mike Ellis on the show before has mentioned Tim Cullen potentially.
He has said that he won't.
Okay, he's taken himself out then.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So it's kind of hard to keep up at this point just because there's a lot of these names that are floated as planning to or going to, and then all of a sudden you know a minor little press release saying, yeah, oh no, I decided not to, I changed my mind. It's hard to keep up sometimes, but again, we're very early in this process. I think it will take a little bit of time to shake out and see just how many people are serious about this. But you're right, there will more than likely be a primary in the Democratic Party that August of 2018, and you can bet leading up to that, there will be some fierce fighting within the party to position one or another candidate as the best person to take on Governor Walker. I think the thing that has sort of become clear to me so far is none of the candidates, at least to this point, really have the kind of name ID, recognition, established reputation to take on a governor going into his running for his third term, but taking on his fourth statewide election. He's established quite a base. He's got quite a formidable political machine, and it will be hard to imagine a Democrat, for me anyway, putting together a statewide machine that's going to take that on. Now, this is in the context, of course, of President Trump and all of these other national trends that could really push a Democratic wave if one is there to be formed.
And this would be the midterm election as well,
Right.
For members of Congress in November of 2018. So
We've got
and so much can happen in
right.
What do we got, 16 months?
Yeah, right. The more than a year between now
Right.
and Election Day in 2018. But we've got a Democratic U.S. Senator on the ballot in Tammy Baldwin. That could draw more Democratic attention, more money, more voters to the polls. But your point about it being a midterm, traditionally what we've seen is a midterm election in the first term of a presidency. The president's party loses seats in Congress. It's typically a better election for the party out of power than the president's party. And so that would traditionally tend to make us think that Democrats are going to fare better. I don't know what to think about traditions and historical precedent anymore because so much is different in this world we live in now after 2016. We're going to talk more about the world we live in 2016 with the professors in the 10 o'clock hour. Professor Arnie Schober and Professor Jerry Podero come in. We're going to talk about Trump's trip to Europe, his speech in Warsaw, the G20, the healthcare reform debate, other things like that. And so we'll get into some more of the national and world news. But Mike, appreciate you bringing us the local stuff. Tomorrow, we're going to have Alderman Chris Croat here to chat at this time about the opening of the Herb Park pool.
Oh, great.
I actually had a chance to walk through there last night.
Really?
They got the lights on and the chairs
did you get
are
an
out.
early tour?
You can't
Or
go
you walk
into the
up?
pool area,
Okay.
but the fencing is down around the construction area,
okay.
and so you can actually walk
Like,
up to it.
what's it-
They rolled the asphalt walking paths and things like that yesterday. I live literally 2 doors from the pool in the
wow,
park,
okay.
so I've been watching this for a year and a half. So, yeah, there's been a lot of action on the site. I think they're finally getting that sledding hill in shape, but I've been wondering what this giant pile of dirt is all about. We'll talk with Chris Croat about that tomorrow, but Mike, thanks for bringing us the news today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We'll talk to you later, and we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the other things we're going to cover today when Tommy joins us at 9. And I want to hear from you. If you've got thoughts about the governor's race, about the judgeship that was appointed, or about anything else in the news, feel free to give us a call. 281-1150 is the number. We're also streaming live. Catch us on WHBY.com or on our Facebook page, live video of Fresh Take today. We'll be back with more after this on WHBY. And welcome back to Fresh Take. We have a great show lined up for you today. Taking a little break from all of the political drama when we have Tommy joining us in the 9 o'clock hour. We're actually going to talk about one of these cultural technology trends that we love to dig into with Tommy. He's so knowledgeable about this stuff. And maybe this is something you've heard about. You all are familiar with the concept of a monopoly, right? These are the businesses that basically have a market cornered. They can charge whatever they want because there's no competition. No, I'm not talking about healthcare. This is about the cable companies, right? More and more, there are alternatives to the cable company if you want premium television. And so more and more, people are cutting the cord. This is a concept that a lot of people are getting familiar with, and they're deciding, you know what, they don't need that $150 cable bill anymore. They're getting rid of cable because there are cheaper options to get just as much programming, and they're pursuing those options. We're going to talk about that with Tommy. If you are someone who has contemplated cutting the cable, or you've done it, have you cut the cord, you now don't have cable anymore, I want to hear from you. Tell us about your experience. Why did you choose that decision? What are the things you're prioritizing now over cable? How's it changed your life? I had cable for a while, and I tell you what, I was addicted to watching cable news. I would watch for hours and hours and hours. I'd be up at 1 a.m, flipping through the cable news channels, wondering why there was nothing on, before realizing I should just go to bed because it was 1 a.m. Luckily, that's not a problem for me anymore because I don't have cable. And I'm so happy that I don't. I do have Netflix. I watch Hulu sometimes. I've got all kinds of options. And the options out there are constantly multiplying. Maybe you decided to go with a satellite company because some of those are a heck of a lot cheaper than cable. But there's a lot of options out there. We're going to talk about this with Tommy, about the link between customer service and the decision of people to just do without something that was formerly a monopoly, felt like they couldn't live without. We're going to talk about cutting the cord.
I grew up without cable, so it wasn't much of a problem for me.
There you go. See, and so if you never got hooked, it is a heck of a lot easier to live without
Well,
it.
until middle school, then we got it the quick trial, but then we had to see it get cut away, though, after the initial price was gone.
That's right. You got your sample just enough to know what you're missing now. And then I bet you go to friends' houses and you're like, hey, what's up?
Luckily, my grandparents lived like 10 feet away.
There we go. There, you had to get it somewhere. All right, well, we're going to talk about cutting the cord in the 9 o'clock hour when we're joined by Tommy Clifford. And then at 10, the professors are back, Professor Schober and Poder. We'll talk about Trump's trip to Europe, the G20, healthcare, and anything else that's on your mind. So we want to hear from you. Be a part of the show right after this.
Sick of the bickering? We've got the solution. Thoughtful talk about the issues that matter in our community. Fresh Take with Josh Duclo. Be a part of the show by calling 281-1150 or email freshtake1150@gmail.com. Now, from the Myron Construction Studio, here's Josh Duclo.
And welcome back to Fresh Take. Glad you are with us on this steamy morning. This hour of Fresh Take is brought to you by Legal Business Edge. Call attorney Sarah DeBruin at 920-991-0404. Legal Business Edge, a practice for your purpose. Well, we've got Tommy Clifford joining us this hour. He'll be with us in just a moment, so you can watch us live on his Facebook page. But, of course, you can watch us live on the WHBY Facebook page. You can watch us live on video on WHBY.com. We've got all kinds of options for you for the live video streams today. And we're going to be talking about options and choices and cutting the cable cord with Tommy in the 9 o'clock hour. Then at 10, we're going to welcome back the professors, Professor Poder and Professor Schober from Lawrence University, talking about the news of the week, Trump's trip to Europe, his speech in Warsaw, the importance of the G20, healthcare, all the other headlines, and whatever is on your mind as well. But we're going to get started out, as we do, with the takeaway, which today is about choosing your own way. If there is one word I would use to best describe life in the 21st century, it's choice. Choice, the freedom to choose, is one of the things that defines life in modern society. In some cases, in fact, people can be overwhelmed by the choices available to them. They just simply have too much to choose from. They can't wrap their head around it, and they get overwhelmed. In other cases, however, and in some markets, the choice can be empowering. I think the best example of this is imagine a stroll through the grocery store. You have dozens of options when it comes to buying crackers. Don't even get me started on cereal. Literally, there are 100 kinds of cereal in one aisle in the grocery store. And so each person has the freedom to decide. Do they want whole wheat or gluten-free or organic? All of these things are available to you in crackers and cereal and bread and all kinds of things. And so you pay for the choice that you make. You pay with your time spent researching and making your selection. You pay with your money when you actually choose the product you want to purchase. And you pay with your health in the impacts your choices have on your body. Now, in some markets, like I said, in the supermarket, choice is empowering. You have lots to choose from, and it can be fun. In other markets, choice is disorienting. And here I would give you the example of car shopping. Go shopping for a new car sometime, and you will be confronted with an endless combination of possible options and features. They all cost something different. Some might be bundled together. Others you have to pick on their own. This is the kind of thing that I would just term confusing. And yet, we do it all the time. And so given the incredible number of choices that we have, it's worth considering how and why we make the choices that we do. There's an entire field of academic study called behavioral economics that's all about this question, about why we make the choices that we do. And I, of course, can't get into all of that today, but I do have a few reasons why some people make choices, particularly when we're talking about these choices in a consumer market. One reason would be brand loyalty. You have a good experience the last time you bought a Ford, and so you keep buying Ford. You like it. It works for you. There's no sense in having to go beyond it because you're comfortable with it and you're happy to buy it again. Now, of course, this type of experience also works in reverse. If you buy a Ford and have nothing with problems, odds are you'll never buy a Ford again, and you'll probably tell your friends not to either. So brand loyalty, both positively and negatively, impacts our choices. There's another thing that impacts our choices. It's brand new features. This is oftentimes the case with mobile devices, cell phones. We want the latest model with all the bells and whistles and options. Oftentimes, those latest models are the most expensive, and we pay dearly to have the newest tech devices. Our friend Tommy knows all about that. The third reason that we'll get into today is why some people might make their choices is budget. You buy what you can afford. I think this is the way most people think about their choices. Rather than shopping for your vegetables at the farm market or going to festival, you go to Aldi. It's a little cheaper, and the selection's pretty good. It might not be local, and it might not be organic. Some of it is, some of it's not, but you've still got lots of choices at a lower price point. And so that's another choice that you make. So while we may have mixed feelings about all the consumer choices we have available to us, the only thing worse than having too much choice, in my opinion, is having no choice at all. Sometimes we have no choice because we're forced to buy something. Think about auto insurance. Yeah, you've got options, but you have no choice. You have to buy it. You must purchase this product. Other times we have no choice because a market is monopolized. You have only one seller or producer to buy from. And this, for as long as I can remember, has been the case with cable television. Like all kinds of utilities, cable TV companies divided up territory so every household would have one option to buy from, and there's no need for the companies to compete with each other. You have your source, and if you buy it, great. At the price they want to offer it to you, fantastic. If not, well, they'll get your neighbors. There's no competition for customers, and so there's very little pressure to keep prices low or to respond to consumer demands. People have been asking for a la carte pricing in cable, again, for as long as I can remember. Well, why haven't we had it? Because the cable companies don't have to. No law is forcing them. No market forces are obliging them. Well, that is changing. Turns out people now have plenty of options, way more than they used to. You want pay television? You've got choices. And man, do you have choices these days. The disruption to this traditional monopoly through a new technology, well, like high-speed internet, but like many other options and new technologies, give people these choices in entertainment at home. Forcing changes to the business model of cable companies, forcing changes to the product markets for premium television, and opening new business opportunities for entrepreneurs, engineers, and innovators. This is the reality of our 21st century entertainment industry. It's changing faster than we can keep up with, and we want to make sure you are up to speed. That's how we're going to talk with our good friend Tommy Clifford about cable monopolies, customer service, and cutting the cord. Coming up right after this on Fresh Take. You're listening to WHBY. And welcome back to Fresh Take. I'm your host, Josh Duclo. Joining me now in the Myron Construction Studio is our friend Tommy Clifford. Tommy, welcome back.
Good morning, Josh, and thank you for having me.
Yes, so happy to have you back. How are you doing?
Spectacular. Great to be here.
Before we jump in on the customer service and cable cord cutting conversation, you mentioned there's something about fireworks, and I'm always game for talking fireworks. What's your impression about fireworks this year, Tommy?
My impression of fireworks, well, first of all, I don't get it. I understand the whole fireworks things, but I don't understand why, all the fireworks stands everywhere can sell stuff that you're allegedly not allowed to blow off.
Yeah, it's totally illegal, yeah. Yep.
But allegedly, there's spots that it is legal to blow them off, and it's the person who buys them, it's their job to know. So the regulation is on the person with the match, not the person selling it.
That's right. And those people selling you the illegal fireworks will also sell you a permit that is absolutely meaningless. It has no force of law.
See, I had no idea. I've never gone to the stands. I just see the...
And unless it is a permanent structure, right? So like an actual brick and mortar store, those tents and things, the tents, they're not inspected by anybody. Nobody inspects that. Nobody enforces anything there. Or at least the police department doesn't. So, yeah, some interesting facts.
I don't get, but our next door neighbors, holy cow!
Yeah?
From like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we had kids in bed with us at like midnight,
gosh.
and it was going and
kept
going.
You know what? I know somebody who lives over on your side of town. She was saying the same thing.
Nikki.
Yes.
Oh, very disappointed.
Yes.
Very
unhappy. Her dog and cat were freaking out.
Unhappy Nikki.
Yeah.
Very unhappy Nikki.
Lots of fireworks over on that side of town. Well, as Zach says and likes to remind us, Zach, why are there so many fireworks this year?
Well, look at the unemployment rate. A lot of people are working. The economy is looking pretty good right now. That means a lot of people have extra money. Let's have some more fun around the 4th.
Yep, more money, more fireworks, more
Absolutely.
patriotism.
You deserve to have fun.
Yes.
Can it be just quieter?
I'm with you on this one, Tommy. I am with you. Okay, there we got fireworks out of our system.
We shook it out. Done.
Now, customer service is something we talked about actually last week, Monday. Brad Zabalski was my co-host.
Love Brad.
Our friend Brad was co-hosting with me. He brought in a series of young entrepreneurs that were talking about the businesses they started and the importance of culture and customer service to their business.
Absolutely.
And we talked with Happy Belly's Bake Shop. We talked with Bold Salon. We talked with Tempest Coffee Collective, and they all mentioned how important creating a welcoming culture centered on strong customer service is to their business.
Absolutely.
Now, you work with, obviously you patronize lots of local businesses, but you also interact with a lot of sort of national and international companies.
Yes.
With the influencing that you do and the products that you explore and rate and critique. A lot of the stuff that you do is working with big brands.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the brands you have experience with and what you've experienced as a customer from some of these brands? What kind of customer service have you experienced from them?
Well, first of all, I think it's important. I mean, customer service, I think, it has to be the baseline measurement, and you have to go. You want to go to the place that you get treated the best.
Right.
I mean, I had an experience with a major cell phone carrier, Verizon, where I was tweeting out, "Do I want to get an Amazon Echo or Verizon Home?" And they actually tweeted back to me, "Hey, we really like the Home. We can help you get it."
Oh.
And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, so they're like paying attention to what's going on. And I had just kind of willy-nilly just was tweeting about it, and they said, and then they helped me get some statistics and stuff, and they said, hey, we got a special deal on it. Let's help you get it. And I thought, that was really pretty cool.
Yeah.
They took their time from a national organization. They actually called me. What's your cell phone number?
Wow.
And they called me up to help me through that process.
So they were paying attention. They were listening
Yes.
when you were speaking out,
Yes.
right? You were posting on social media saying, I'm making this consumer choice. They
Right.
were paying attention, and they engaged with you
Yes, they
in an
did.
attempt to make the sale.
Absolutely. And they made the sale. They
Yeah.
made the sale.
Interesting. Now, that was Verizon.
Yes.
You've had a lot of experience with Verizon.
I have. I have.
And would you say they've been mostly positive?
I would say they're very mostly positive.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have no complaints there. I really don't.
What about some other companies that you've worked with? Other industries or products you've bought, other companies that you've worked with where you've had positive customer service experiences?
Well, and this is going to be a given, but I've always get a positive customer experience when I'm going to Apple.
Oh, okay, sure. Again, a company that has really built on a belief that their customer service is central to
Their
their
cornerstone.
brand.
Their cornerstone of the operation. And the customer, it's not just customer service. I think it's the customer experience.
Yeah.
From
Yeah.
the box opening to the light beams coming out of the box, the whole 9 yards. I mean, and all joking aside, there's a reason why when you open that box, the iPhone's the first thing you see. There's a little thing of instructions. You get stickers, everything. There's a reason why everything is where it's at. And they want you to be as excited as they were giving it to you.
That's a really interesting point that you raised, Tommy. You talk about customer service versus customer experience. I think when we think about customer service, you're thinking about the point of sale, and then potentially if something goes wrong.
Right.
You've got a problem, they need to be there to fix it. Customer experience is a much more complete idea. That's about everything you are feeling or doing or experiencing with their product. Customer experience touches on all of that, and you've got to be a lot more thoughtful, a lot more present and available in order to be maintaining and creating a customer experience.
Well, in this day and age, if you have a bad experience, they've lost a cheerleader, and it's not just. This isn't one of those days where you just call up the letter to the editor and say, I had a really bad experience with the iPhone.
Right.
You start tweeting, Facebooking, Snapchatting. Here is this horrible, horrible experience.
Right.
And then people get on the bandwagon, then the news picks up on
Yelp, Amazon reviews, Google reviews.
it. Right.
These things quickly get out of control now.
It escalates very quickly, as our good friends at United will tell us very quickly.
I was just going to say,
And it keeps
talk
happening.
to the airlines.
It keeps happening. I mean, they need a top-down issue. They got a top-down issue.
Something's got to be done.
Just a question for Tommy. As you can tell that, great customer service keeps you in with that company. How much is the follow-up part? 'Cause some companies will actually, hey, how's it been going? It's been 6 months since you purchased our product
Great
or worked
questions,
with
Ed.
us. How important is that to you?
I think it's very important, and I have a classic company. Their name is Anchor. They sell pretty much exclusively through Amazon, but the one thing that they offer is an 18-month warranty as opposed to a 12-month warranty on all their, and they sell external batteries, battery cases, a lot of lesser expensive electronic stuff. But I'll get an email saying, I hope you're happy. I hope you'll leave us a review. If you're not happy, I'm the person to make you happy. And I had an issue one time with something. They said, don't send it back. We'll send you a new one. They overnighted a new one. And I thought to myself, that's awesome. I mean, so you're right, Mr. Producer. They're not just saying if somebody who's hasn't spoken up is happy, they're actually soliciting that feedback so that they become better.
Being more proactive about creating that positive customer experience.
You have to ask the right questions, and you have to be engaging in that regard.
Now, we've talked about cell phone companies, we've talked about airlines, we've talked about electronics companies, right? These are all markets or industries that are incredibly competitive.
Very competitive. If I don't like Verizon, you can go to here.
And the next company will pay you to bring your business to them, right?
We'll pay you out of your contract.
Cancellation
we'll
fees,
give you free iPhones. I mean, there's like people throwing cash. Asterisk, your mileage may vary. There's all kinds of little small print with it.
Right.
But then there's some industries where you really don't have that.
Right.
I even saw a lower end phone company saying, if you were with this other lower end phone company, we'll give you a free phone, a fancy Galaxy, whatever.
Right. It's like Boost is really getting in on this, Boost Mobile against Cricket Wireless or whatever. Some of these like budget brand wireless companies, they're really getting into this competition.
And what's interesting
now too.
is their budget brand, but they really have a parent company.
That's
They're
right.
just small. They're
Right.
they're just going after. It's kind of like the outlet. Outlet mall.
Right.
It's the same stuff.
Right.
Just a little bit. Maybe it has
Cricket is actually Sprint.
has
or,
7 different
or,
buttonholes
right.
instead of 3.
Boost Mobile's actually Verizon or whatever it is.
Right.
They're
That's
just
exactly
a different brand, a different
They're
label.
just going after a different demo.
And so this highly competitive consumer environment, I mean, you talked about buying on Amazon, right? You don't even have to move a muscle to find a competitor on Amazon. It's literally right next to the other option. Your options are laid out right in front of you. With the click of a mouse, you have 17 choices.
Right.
And so people who sell on Amazon are aggressively making sure that you have a good customer experience, following up, and please leave us a review. And if there's anything more we can do,
Absolutely.
they're all over it. I know a friend who works for a small business where they're selling watches on Amazon. And it's all about the follow-up. It's all about getting it there faster than someone else can. It's all about literally, you buy your watch today, we ship it today.
It's all about the algorithm. And because, you go to an Amazon page, and if you spend too long on this page and don't buy, then the algorithm penalizes you the next time somebody does that search, because they think, oh, I did that search, your watch came up. That's not what they were looking for. They went to somebody else's watch.
Wow.
I mean, it's and like the prices are changed like second by the second. I mean, it's numbing the intelligence behind what's going on there.
Well, as you mentioned, like Amazon, where I do a lot of things through eBay, where everyone's their own personal store saying, hey, we want to make sure this got there on time. As you mentioned, they'll strive on just getting the box to you really quicker than everyone else.
Yeah.
And that changes a lot of people's opinions. Hey, if I can get it within a couple days.
Listen, that's right. If you're buying online, one of the big flaws of that model used to be, well, I could just go to the store and get it today. If I buy it online, I have to wait. Not anymore.
Today's Amazon Prime Day, so they have smooth deals if you're a Prime member.
Right. I'll have to do some shopping when I get home. I am an Amazon Prime member, which brings us to this issue about the cable companies. And we're going to get into this when we come back after this break. Cutting the cord from cable, because there are now so many other options to what used to be a monopoly market. We're talking with Tommy Clifford. If you've got questions about cutting the cable cord, or you have your own experience with cutting the cable cord, we want to hear from you. You can comment on our Facebook Live feeds, on Tommy's page, on WHBY.com. You could call us. 281-1150 is the phone number. Outside of Appleton, use our toll-free line, 1-866-887-1150, or email me, freshhtake1150@gmail.com. Oh, yeah, you can also tweet at me, @JoshDuclo. Lots of ways to get involved in the show. We're going to talk cutting the cord when we come back with Tommy Clifford on Fresh Take. You're listening to WHBY. And welcome back to Fresh Take. I'm your host, Josh Duclo. 79 degrees already on this July morning here at the Myron Construction Studio of WHBY. I've got my buddy Tommy Clifford in studio with us. Hey, Tommy.
Beautiful air conditioning.
Yeah, it doesn't feel nice.
We're not melting like the people in Arizona, though. I have some friends, 120. It was there a week ago.
I can't even imagine.
Airplanes couldn't take off because it was outside their operating range.
Speaking of frustrating customer experiences, but we talked about airlines already, so let's dig into this topic of the cable companies. Now, there's an important caveat that I thought of literally as I was trying to fall asleep last night and worried that this entire topic was going to fall apart because of this, but it's just more of a caveat. Tell us about, Tommy, you can't truly, fully, necessarily cut the cord if you still want TV.
You're not going to go off the grid.
Right.
You need the highway. You need the mechanism to get the digital data to your household.
And these days, that's high-speed internet.
Correct.
A T1 line, high-speed cable, DSL, something like that.
Yes, something. And obviously, the local cable provider gives you the fastest. We don't have, like, we're not in a Google city.
Right.
Oh, man. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Give me a moment of silence for that. But, Austin, Texas, a gigabit to your house. Oh,
yeah,
my gosh,
right. That's a game changer right there.
Right, I'm starting to tingle. So you need to have high-speed internet access to your house, but the options to get content to your house. Now you got the road, you got the tunnels. Where are you going to get the channels? That's what we want to really talk about because the cable company's not the only show in town anymore.
And the cable company, they will sell you high-speed internet.
Yes.
Coming through that same pipe would be a home phone.
Yes.
And would be cable television.
Correct.
The premium, all the pay channels that we're used to, the 300 cable channels or whatever it is.
A DVR box.
Right.
And they'll give you like the boxes for each individual TV, and you can have like a whole home DVR. We have a whole home DVR, so we can, 1,000 hours of programming. We can stream all over the house.
And now, in addition to those that come in with a cable, you've also got the ones that come in on a dish, DirecTV, and some of those other ones.
Right.
That will also provide they do high-speed internet that way,
They do.
Right?
It's not really that good because of the latency with regard to it's not very
satellite
good.
transmitting. Yeah.
Well, I believe that's more of you're in that rural area where you cannot get anything else besides that.
Where the cable, the pipe, is not much of an option. But now, instead of having to pay your cable company for, your TV and for your internet, if you just get the internet feed, if you just have high-speed internet connection to your house, you have tons of options for ways to get the programming, the content
There
that you
are.
were talking about. One of the more popular ones I think most people will be familiar with is Netflix.
Oh, amazing.
Been around a long time. They actually started as a company. Zach, maybe you don't know
DVDs,
this.
remember those?
All right, I do remember when you were able to rent a DVD and you had to mail it back.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Their whole business model was just about creating a queue, and they would mail you DVDs, and you mailed them back. That was their whole thing.
Little known fact:
Yes.
Netflix had to had to go to the postal service to make it so that those DVDs could be in that type of packaging because they don't bend properly.
Right.
And to get the pricing that they needed,
Oh my
they
gosh,
had to
right.
petition the postal service to change it because of the amount of DVDs that went in the stream.
So now we're past that days of mailing DVDs.
Some
or
people still use it though. I mean, they still have DVD
it's
levels.
still available, right? It's still a service that's out there, but you can stream all of that stuff live right into your house, right on whatever
Almost all of
screen.
it. There are some DVD only options.
Oh, geez.
Which is sad, but
Yeah.
obviously I'm missing out on
Interesting.
all.
Yeah,
but,
right. Not that I'll watch those things, but hey, I miss out.
But stream. What's a DVD?
Yeah. So there's Netflix. There's a website like Hulu.com.
Correct.
And there's something, Amazon is the shopping platform we talked about. Well, they have Amazon Prime.
That's right.
And that is a streaming video content platform you can get.
Most cable channels have there's FX now, Fox now, HBO to go.
Right.
Showtime has a
And so you
a
can
la carte type of
Basically,
programming.
right. It's a la carte. You're subscribing to whatever service you want. So something like Netflix is what, maybe $10 a month?
Right.
Amazon Prime, $10 a month.
Right.
You could get all of these services and still pay less than what you were paying for cable TV. Because cable would cost you, what, $100 maybe?
Right.
And now you can get all these different services with giant on-demand movie libraries, full seasons of television shows, and original programming.
Original content,
Original
House of Cards,
content,
and all
yeah.
kind-
Produced by these companies for less than what you would pay for cable.
Well, the big one right now is Sling.
So this is actually, tell me more about Sling, Zach. What do you know about
Now
Sling?
that one, you're able to watch cable channels through your online services, and you're just able to. That's like $20-some a month. You can pay a little bit more for more of the higher end channels like
Okay.
HBO. But I've heard a lot of people slowly going over to that avenue.
And one of the things that I've heard about with Sling, and we'd love to hear from you on this, if you have experience with cord cutting or some of these different services, give us a call, 281-1150. Email me, freshtake1150@gmail.com. Comment on one of our Facebook live streams on Tommy's page or on WHBY's Facebook page. If you've got experience with this, because Sling offers live sports. And this
That's
has
a big
long
deal.
been
So YouTube's
the holy
starting to
grail.
get there.
Really?
The whole network channel and the live sports, that's a big deal. Mark
Right.
just mentioned
Yeah.
Our local cable company offers a streaming only plan.
Oh,
So,
the
bring your
cable-
own networking, bring your own cable box.
Wow.
And
So this is really accelerating the change in this market.
It really is, and I think that once there is a holy grail. There's that whole. You'll never go to your local cable company say, I don't want home shopping.
Right,
I don't
right.
want the tattoo channel. I don't want the digging for fossil channel. I just want ESPN, HBO, and House Hunters. That's
Right,
all I want.
right,
I want
right.
3 channels.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But with Sling or PlayStation View, or now YouTube has a TV channel.
Oh my gosh.
And now you can even have DVR services where things can be video recorded in the cloud.
Right, right.
Which is it's amazing. It's absolutely stunning what is happening.
This is really the, and I'm not going to say ultimate because we're not to the ultimate yet, but this is on the way towards completely customized entertainment channels.
Yes, it
Where
is.
you would basically build your own entertainment playlist out of channels and programming you can choose from. You build your own combination, your own series. You're essentially programming your own television station with the shows you like. You're right, Tommy. You're never going to be able to, or we shouldn't say never. You can't go to the cable company and pick and choose your channels, but you're getting close to being able to customize your own menu of choices given some of these on-demand services.
Well, and you're getting to the point where the new TVs, what are called smart TVs, they
Right.
have all these options
Built
right
in,
for
right.
you.
Yes. There's apps for Netflix and for Amazon and for Hulu, and they're built into your TV. You don't even have to hook a computer up to your TV. Your TV is a computer.
Right. I have a high def TV that was before the smart TV integration. So there's no
Right.
Wi-Fi built into it or no internet connection, but we have an Xbox One S that hooks into it. So we have the Amazon app, Netflix app,
Right.
all those different things, and we just switch it kind of like instead of playing Minecraft, we're
Right.
now playing YouTube channel, and I can scroll through, log in.
Yeah.
And,
These smart TVs have a web browser in
Yes.
the TV.
yes.
All of the different things you'd find
Remember
online.
Web TV, Microsoft's Web TV from like the late 90s?
Oh,
That got
wow.
panned pretty bad.
I was going to say that kind of vaguely has a place in the back of my mind there somewhere. I can't quite place it, but I do remember the name. But this is really the big trend. And if you want to get in on this, give us a call, 281-1150, or comment on our streams. You can email me, freshtake1150@gmail.com. We got some callers coming in now. Tommy, this is really moving. Do you think there is a connection between monopolies, customer service, and this movement away from cable companies, this cord cutting?
Absolutely. I think that, that people are torqued off with the way they get treated because you kind of have the old Saturday Night Live skit where Lily Tomlin, if you don't like it, you can go someplace else. Oh, you can't. We're the phone company. Back when there was only one phone company.
That's
Now
right.
there's-
That's right.
Now there's competition in that phone space. If you're not happy with this person, you can go to this person.
Yeah.
You can go to the yellow person or the blue person or the red person.
Right.
In the cable market, we don't have that.
Right.
We really don't. I mean, yes, you can go to some other ones, but they're not all. It's not all apples to apples.
And so while, again, the cable company is providing the pipeline into the home, we now have options outside the cable
the
company
content.
for the content.
Yes.
Exactly. All right, we've got Kay on the line. Kay, thanks so much for your phone call this morning. What's on your mind?
Well, I just want to make a comment. I have a Turk, T-E-R-K, $40 antenna, and I get all the local stations plus many more. And I just adjust it if I need to.
Sure.
And I get all the channels. But I also subscribe to Acorn TV, which is all the British shows. And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
wonderful. It's only $4.95 a month.
Wow.
And there's just wonderful shows, and you can watch it on your TV if you have the Roku thing or whatever. But I just watch it on my iPad.
So you do still need that internet connection.
I
but
know,
you're-
I know.
Well, but you're now saying not only is it American-based choices, you've got British options. We can
Yes.
import our
And it's exactly
content.
the way you want it.
Right.
That's
Right.
what the cable companies have been really struggling. You can watch it if it's on your TV with our cable box.
Right.
Right. And this TV, I mean, I get, all the ABC, CBS, NBC channels, plus I get 3 or 4 PBS channels,
Right.
which on cable you only can get one.
Yeah. Or they take those extra channels and bury them up in like the 400s somewhere where you're never
Maybe.
going to find them. Yeah. Kay, thank you so much for the phone call. I appreciate you sharing your experience with this. This is something that's happening more and more.
Absolutely.
As Kay said, you can get a lot more channels now than you ever could before with just a simple antenna. That's what I have at my house.
That's right.
I just have an antenna, and I'd say I probably have 20 channels just through the air.
I'm trying to think, when was it when my grandpa first got a new LCD TV
Okay.
where you can actually hook up and remember high definition, all he knew about that was, I need the fancy cable box.
Right,
And then all of a sudden
right.
you put an antenna onto a better TV and oh my gosh, there's all these channels
Yeah.
look so good. And
Yeah.
PBS, you found like 3 more of
Yeah,
those. Like,
yeah.
I didn't even know they existed.
Well, and you've got the networks around here that are running sort of like nostalgia television where it's
That's
all
right.
the reruns of the old shows you
Old
love.
shows and
I have now watched
24/7 weather.
Roseanne, like from start to finish, 15 times, I think, thanks to MeTV. That was a show that I remember watching as a kid and really enjoyed.
Now we did have a call
Yeah.
from Gary just mentioning how if you're someone that just has like cable and that's it, you don't have internet. Now if you do cut off that way or you cut off from satellite, you're still paying somewhat for internet because you have to have, as we mentioned
Yep.
earlier, you do need
That's
an
right.
internet service to access these other
That
services.
That's
pipe
true.
into the house is the
Good
thing we're
comment, Gary.
still
Thank you.
stuck on. Yeah, thank you, Gary.
You have to have that pipe into your house because if you cut yourself off, then the antenna is your only option.
That's right, absolutely.
But
And
then you see all the Packer games.
You do, and that's where I think some people have
Well,
built
most
this,
of them,
this
until
sort
they're
of
on NFL Network.
combination of online streaming, through the air antenna, right? All these different options, and you can just switch back and forth. Things like the Amazon Fire Stick, where they're going to integrate all these things, and then. No, we're not recommending you do this, but there's also options for sort of cracking some of this technology.
I don't know anything about that.
Where you don't have to pay for the subscription. You have certain codes or people who know certain things, and They just magically bring these things onto your
I don't know
television.
what you're talking about.
Yeah,
all
we
the
wouldn't
time.
know anything about that. But now Mark had a comment on the live stream. Was it about smart TVs?
Yeah, he was saying that not all smart TVs or streaming hardware, Xbox, Blu-ray players are created equal. Some have better selection of apps than others. Roku, in my experience, has the highest selection of streaming apps available, and I would agree with that.
And that's one that I've heard a lot about. I don't know a lot about it. Roku is one. Is it like a set-top box?
I mean, but it's about the size of a hocky puck. I have one.
Wow.
I have the one that's the size of a USB stick, and it just goes into the HDMI port. And there's a USB plug that goes into the wall, and I connected it to my Wi-Fi, and I can connect it. I have a little remote control,
Sure.
IR remote control, or I can control it from my iPad. And there's thousands of different channels.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
the system is very open to content creators getting their content there. I
Onto
can
the
buy
platform,
it,
yeah.
or I can just watch it. It's kind of crazy.
Whatever's there.
I've had one of those, and my parents have a couple of the Rokus because with their TV provider now, you get to pay extra for every box you own. But if you have a Roku or something that they can have, okay, you can get our service on those devices. So instead of for cable companies or dish companies where they can say you have to buy multiple boxes, you can
Right.
get these and connect them to TVs wherever you want
That's
inside
right.
your house.
Sling, or excuse me, Spectrum and Time Warner now have an app that run on the Roku, so I can just go to my channel guide, and all the channels I get on my cable box, I get there. I don't get DVR access, but I can see all the channels.
The integration of all these options is interesting as well, where you can program to record a show on your DVR from your tablet at work, right? Or look and see what's on TV later on by scrolling through the menu of your on-demand choices.
There's a lot of catch-up, a lot of
Yeah.
leapfrogging going on, where your cable provider will have the, oh gosh, I sat down and I missed the first 10 minutes of my show. Let me start it over again,
right.
or let me program the DVR from wherever I am.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is slowly becoming commonplace in the other apps.
And that's where it's a good job by Time Warner Spectrum, where they're figuring out, all right, we know people are moving to that way of on-demand TV.
right.
How can we figure our way to match that?
Exactly. And this gets back to where this whole conversation started, which is customer service and customer experience. The need for these companies to be responsive to their consumers in order to stay competitive. Because the options, as you said, Tommy, the perfect word, leapfrogging the old technology. Whoever's new, they don't have to worry about all the legacy. They don't have to worry about building out a network. They don't have to worry about supporting 700 channels. If they want to put out one channel of all great content, that's all they have to do. They'll put it right there on the platform
Right.
of Roku or YouTube or Netflix or Hulu, whatever it is, and it's right there on your screen at your fingertips. And this is the kind of reality that we're going into. Who knows where this is going to go next? We'll come back. I want to ask you, think about that over the break, where this is going next.
Okay.
What might be coming? And we've got a couple of things we want to do to wrap up this hour. If you want to get in on this, we still have time for your thoughts as well. 281-1150. Email me, freshhtake1150@gmail.com. Tweet at me, at Josh Duclo, or check us out online. We're streaming live on WHBY's Facebook page or on WHBY.com. Lots of ways to get involved. We want to hear from you. 281-1150. FreshTake1150@gmail.com. More with Tommy Clifford when we come back on WHBY. Welcome back to Fresh Take. We're talking with Tommy Clifford about customer service and cutting that cable cord. We did mention that it's Prime Day on Amazon. If you're an Amazon shopper, maybe you're familiar with a service called Smile. Amazon has a program called Smile, and if you start your shopping at smile.amazon.com, you can actually benefit nonprofits in your community through your shopping. And Phil said that the Time Community Theater in Oshkosh has an account there on Smile. And so there's lots of them in the community. I've seen this being advertised ahead of Prime Day. So if you aren't typically an Amazon shopper, but you're going to go check it out today on Amazon Prime Day, start your shopping at smile.amazon.com, and you'll be able to look through nonprofits that you can benefit with your shopping on Amazon. So if you're going to do some of that, that's a great way
Thanks,
to
Phil, for that
extend,
tip.
extend the benefit of what's going on there. Another email that I wanted to get to, Tommy. Okay, and this is the email I knew was coming. I knew that there was people out there with this thought. What about those of us, this writer says, that have no idea what a Sling or an iPad or streaming or Netflix or any of this stuff is? What about those people who have no idea how to do any of this and don't want to program anything? What's the best approach for someone who's just sort of technology illiterate?
Then they probably do not want to. They're not going to have they want to stay with the cable company. They're going to want to stay with someone who's going to give them technical support,
Right.
who's going to handhold them through the process, who's already done the trial and error for you.
Yeah.
I think that they're probably going to want to stay with what they know.
And if you're looking to save money, but you don't want to get involved with the high-tech options, then that HD television antenna, getting
Right.
HD through the air, and just having those 20-some options, it's better than nothing. It's better than paying $100 a month for 20 channels or 200 channels you don't watch much.
True.
So that through the
Then you
air
rely on your
antenna-
grandson or your nephew to help you out in that regard.
Yeah, and honestly, these antennas are so simple. You plug them in,
Plug
you
and play.
scan,
Right.
and it'll walk you through that. This is it, though. When you're working with technology, there is some level.
There's going to be some skin knees. It's
yeah.
not perfect.
And
Nothing's perfect.
Trial and error is okay. You've got to be willing to give it a shot. Okay, and we've got Keith on the line who's got a comment for us on Smart TV. Keith, thanks for your phone call. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I have a smart TV. It's about 4 years old, made by a company name starts with an S, but they no longer support it. So it's basically no longer a smart TV because the company doesn't support it. Then videos and stuff like that don't run because you can't get the latest updates.
Yeah, so this is one of the risks of the new technology.
It's a total risk. I mean,
is
it
those
really
old
is.
things stop being supported. Yeah.
And that's going to happen. With technology, things are going to become obsolescent. Thankfully, your HD signal isn't outdated, and you could probly add a $49 Roku stick. That's what
I've already got Roku's. I got TiVo with over-the-air DVR too, which is really nice.
Oh, very nice.
All right. So, Keith, thank you for that phone call.
Thank you, Keith.
That actually leads perfectly to an email I just got from Dave, who's asking about that exact thing. He says he wants to use a digital antenna to get the free television over the air, but he's interested in having a way of recording the shows. Is there a recommendation you have for him, Tommy?
I don't have a recommendation just because I don't do it myself, but
Okay.
I know there absolutely are services that will record that information locally, and so that you can keep that.
So, Dave, a Google search might be a good way of what you're looking for is just an at-home DVR.
That's right.
A TiVo that doesn't come with any television services. It's literally just, basically, it's an external hard drive for your TV. Now, you might need a certain kind of TV to be able to hook up to that hard drive or that recording device. Some of that
But I know
might
it's
be a
out
little
there. I
challenging.
absolutely know it's out there.
And it will work with the HD TV antennas for sure. So, Dave,
absolutely.
there is an option out there for you. We don't have specifics to recommend, but do a little bit of Googling, and I'm sure you'll find something. All right, Tommy, the music means our time is up.
Oh, man.
I know. We'll have you back in a couple of weeks. And folks, if you're listening and you've got suggestions for topics we can talk about with Tommy when he's back, email me, freshtake1150@gmail.com, freshtake1150@gmail.com. Tommy, where do folks follow you on Twitter?
At TommyTRC on Twitter.
At TommyTRC. You can follow Thomas R. Clifford on Facebook. Also, make sure you're following WHBY on Facebook, not only for video streams, but for the latest local news. Tommy, thanks for coming in. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
My pleasure.
When we're back after the news, it's the professors recapping the news of the last couple weeks. Don't go away.
Sick of the bickering? We've got the solution. Thoughtful talk about the issues that matter in our community. Fresh Take with Josh Duclos. Be a part of the show by calling 281-1150 or email freshtake1150@gmail.com. Now, from the Myron Construction Studio, here's Josh Duclos.
Welcome back to Fresh Take. I'm your host, Josh Duclos. This hour of Fresh Take is brought to you by Hooper Law Office. Call Peter Harbach and Sarah Kahns at 1-800-794-5548. Hooper Law Office, providing a pathway to your legacy. Well, thank you so much for being with us. I hope you enjoyed that hour of Talking Tech with Tommy Clifford. If you've got other ideas, questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to email me, freshtake1150@gmail.com, or if you're on Twitter, tweet at Tommy, at TommyTRC. He's great on Twitter. He'll get right back to you. He's a lot of fun to follow. So if you're not on Twitter, go give it a try sometime. Twitter.com, set up an account, go see what you can find. Prepare to be underwhelmed or amazed, depending on your expectations. Speaking of expectations, I always am expecting a great time when we welcome back our friends, The professors, Professor Jerry Poder from the History Department at Lawrence University. Welcome back, Professor Poder.
Great to be back, Josh.
And Professor Arnold Schober from the Government Department, also at Lawrence University. Welcome back, Professor Schober.
Thanks for having me.
Love having you guys here. And it was nice. The president took a trip to Europe last week, so we've got a lot of things to talk about.
Just for us.
Yeah.
He said the professors are going to be back on Tuesday. I better go to Europe.
I love it. I love it.
Stop off at Warsaw,
Yeah,
too.
that's right. That's right. So a nice. I'm thinking of this as Trump in Europe, the sequel.
Right.
This is his second time in Europe in like 6 weeks. I mean, it's been just over a month since his last trip. So I'll start out by asking both of you. We'll start with you, Arnie. Initial reactions to the trip. What did you think about this trip to Europe, just on its face?
Well, I think Trump is looking for ways to look presidential, so to speak, and this is one way to do it. I mean, the G20 summit, largely for leaders to show their stuff, if accomplishing nothing else. And I think his trip to Poland was the most significant part of it, however. G20 aside, I think that Poland trip was quite significant, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I agree with Arnie. He does better outside America than he does in America sometimes. And the Warsaw speech, and we'll get to that, I think was very, very significant, and especially in contrast with the prior administration's stance on the idea of American exceptionalism and Western values. It was a very pointed speech in a very pointed place for Trump.
Before we get to the speech specifically, let's think for a moment about the setting of Poland. This is on sort of the Eastern Front, so to speak, to borrow a metaphor from World War I, where Europe, the European Union, is really confronting a more expansionist, aggressive Russia. Poland really does feel like they're on the front line. There's some weapon systems that were involved in this trip with the president. In addition to the speech, there's also a shifting feeling in Poland, in its government, in its politics. It's becoming a bit more nationalist. Talk a little bit about that, Jerry, about what we're seeing in Poland in historical context and its politics.
Well, Poland has always been the country caught in between two massive and often aggressive nations, Germany and Russia, or the Soviet Union during the Cold War. And so there has always been a flame of Polish nationalism. There's a reason that after Chopin died, he wanted his heart to go back to Poland, and so that has always been a major impulse in that country. But even more so now, with the end of the Cold War, with the end of Marxism in Poland. The forces of nationalism, of patriotism, of religion are now free to blossom and to flourish.
Sure.
And certainly, if you're a Pole today, you're looking very, very anxiously, not necessarily to the west, but to the east and Russia.
Yeah, in his comments in Warsaw, President Trump did affirm NATO Article 5 commitments. You could tell, or at least it sounded to me like he was very much reading that line in the speech. It was made sure this time you have to say this. Arnie, in the context of Russia and Poland and the history here, what is the significance of that affirmation? Why was that so important for President Trump to have to say that this time when he didn't last time?
Well, Poland is really one of the few countries now where Article 5 would actually matter with a neighboring potential aggressor. We can talk about it in France or Spain, but they don't really face any geopolitical threat. So this isn't terrorism. This is like old-fashioned military strategy here. Right. And so for Trump to say something like that in Poland is really, in some ways, to stick it in the eye of Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
Despite other news about our Russian non-friend,
right.
This was a place where Trump could say that to the maximum effect. And he could be really held to the fire should he later on say, that's not really what I meant.
Yeah, right.
Well, also, Poland has actually been invaded by Russia.
Right.
Right. This is not theoretical. So for Poles to hear that is very, very important, and it's one of the reasons he got the ovation that he did.
And did he ever? He was greeted like a rock star, I think second only to Saudi Arabia in the acclaim with which President Trump was greeted upon arrival. And so then let's get to the speech that he gave in Warsaw. Professor Poder, I want to start with you. Place this into context of the current day and in the larger historical context of these remarks.
Well, to speak about Western values would have been something that would not have occurred during the Obama administration. It simply would not have occurred. Obama was very careful to characterize himself not necessarily always as a citizen of the world or as a global citizen, but as someone who was comfortable with that, and certainly from the Republican standpoint, conservative Republican standpoint, he seemed to them ambivalent about the values of the West. This is a speech that Ronald Reagan basically could have given, and to a large extent, even Pope John Paul would not necessarily have spoken about Western values. And I'm referring here to his famous speech and his famous visit to Poland in 1979 when they were still under the heel of the Soviet Union, the speech during which the Polish people started chanting, "We want God, we want God." And I think the Trump speech has been compared to some extent to that. He didn't talk about God, but he did talk about Western values.
And it was really framed as the Samuel Huntington style clash of civilizations.
Exactly. And also this was an Ich bin Berliner speech as well. It's a reminiscent of Kennedy's speech at the Berlin Wall.
Identifying both America and Europe together in this common Western tradition. Arnie, talk a little bit about that larger historical context then in American politics of this kind of speech with Kennedy at Berlin and Reagan and some of these other U.S. presidents.
I think one of the things that's interesting about it is he's almost harkening back to Woodrow Wilson when you think about the end of World War I, when one of those 14 points that ended that war was national self-determination.
Yeah.
So Trump and his writers may not have made that connection, but I thought this is a speech that said there's a country is something special. It's not something that you can kind of amalgamate into some kind of mushy whatever.
Yeah.
There is something distinctive about individual countries. And again, with Jerry, I'd agree that Obama was a little bit hesitant to go there. And even George W. Bush was hesitant to go there. But Trump has no qualms about saying America is special, Poland is special, France is special, and we can't all be under the same laws, perhaps, the same agreements, perhaps. You got to protect your own citizens. And I think that's really been a century of quasi-American policy from Woodrow Wilson on.
But certainly something that we did not hear, as you said, Professor Poder, something we didn't hear often or at all from the Obama administration. And so in contemporary politics, it's as much a break with recent past as it is an extension of American tradition.
Absolutely, and I think the words were chosen deliberately, that Western values, rule of law, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, democracy, rights for women, rights for homosexuals, makes the West distinctive from other cultures and other civilizations,
really,
if you will.
Defining a Western identity.
Right.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things, and the reason why Ronald Reagan could have given this something like it, like Professor Poder said, was that in Reagan's day you had the Iron Curtain, and there was clearly an East or at least a Soviet bloc.
Right.
Now we don't really have that as much. I mean, Russia's making noises, but it's not as much of an existential threat as perhaps it once was. So for Trump to give it now, he's inviting controversy because we don't have that very obvious enemy out there that he's setting up in this speech. He's setting up a line of division that isn't obvious to everyone.
And I think in the formulation that President Trump made in this speech, the aggressor, the opponent, is extremism, is in this specific case radical Islamic extremism, as he is so wont to point out, in which case we have a common enemy with Russia. Right? Russia is also fighting against radical Islamic extremism, and so this is not as clear-cut a picture as we had with the Cold War, where there was this very clearly delineated front and this division and this conflict that was ready to take off at any moment. The conflict is now much more on the periphery, and the players aren't always so clearly defined, right? We've got these extremists that have already taken root in Western nations. We see these attacks in the UK and France and Belgium and other places.
I think that's true. I don't think the speech was quite as clear about that because he made many references to, quite frankly, atrocities by the Russians in the past. So it wasn't quite as clear that's the only thing he was going at.
Right, right. You know, the question of whether Russia is part of the West has always been a historical question and a cultural issue among the Russian people themselves. Which way do they face, West or East? And I think in the Trump speech, he was to some extent calling out almost any country, including the Russians, that would oppose the Western values, again, democracy, rule of law, freedom of expression, expression, which to a large extent in Russia today is not necessarily settled point.
Yeah. I would take this moment to plug a series this week on the PBS NewsHour, Inside Putin's Russia. It started last night, this in-depth investigation. They're going to talk about propaganda and politics and all these other things, but last night's episode was all about the cultural renaissance that Putin has been leading, bringing back traditional elements of Russian culture, the Cossacks and the Tsars and Imperial Russia. One of the classes I took from Mike Hittle at Lawrence was
Right.
Imperial Russia, so something I know a little bit about. But it was this revival of the Russian Orthodox Church and this emergence of a common Russian identity as a way of unifying the country behind its leader and against external enemies and threats. This series continues this week on the PBS NewsHour. I highly recommend it to folks who are interested in learning more. We're going to take a quick break right now. We'll be back with Professor Poder and Professor Schober talking about Trump's meeting with Putin and the G20 itself, the relevance of this organization on the global stage. If you've got questions, or if you just want to watch us online, you can do that too. Questions coming to us at 281-1150 or toll free on the TDS Metrocom line 1-866-887-1150. You can watch us online on the WHBY Facebook page or at WHBY.com. Go under videos, you'll find live video. That's where you'll find us. You can watch us here in the studio, but bring us your questions either by phone, 281-1150, or email me, freshhtake1150@gmail.com. Back with more about Trump's trip to Europe with the professors on Fresh Take. You're listening to WHBY. Welcome back to Fresh Take. We're talking with Professor Jerry Poder and Professor Arnold Schober from Lawrence University about, right now anyway, Trump's trip to Europe last week. Gentlemen, he finally had a face-to-face with the one and only president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. Takeaways from that meeting, Jerry?
World War III didn't start, so that's fine. And Putin denied any involvement in the American presidential election. That was to be expected. He's not going to give us any help on North Korea. That's to be expected. We got a ceasefire in southwest Syria, which we will see how long it holds. But generally in Syria, no victory laps there. Our interests in that country are very different. Putin wants Assad to stay, and we want Assad to go. Putin wants influence throughout the Middle East, and we would prefer that not happen. So it was, I think, a reasonably productive meeting because there was a ceasefire, and Israel and Jordan are certainly very happy about that because that part of Syria is on their border. But if this wasn't Putin, this would not even be news.
Right. And this is part of what's remarkable about this meeting is what we're talking about afterwards is the contradictory readouts. And Secretary of State Rex Tillerson saying, our interests and Russian interests in Syria are exactly the same. Maybe they have the right approach and we have the wrong approach. Some of these rhetorical things are a lot more interesting, or at least a lot more talked about, than the actual content of the meeting, Arnie. That's kind of different, isn't it? We don't typically see presidential head of state meetings where we're bickering over the notes that are taken or the fact that there was no note taker.
Yeah, it is. This has been characteristic of the administration thus far, that there is not a very unified message going forward, and that's how the campaign was run too. It's no surprise to anyone that it continues now. But when you deal with international affairs, it can be a little more dicey, and I think we saw that certainly with this meeting as well.
Yeah, the notion that Trump did or did not accept Putin's denial of election hacking. Every time I hear that, I think, who cares, right? Of course he was going to deny it. What was Trump going to do? Keep badgering him until he admitted it? Well, guess what? That was never going to happen, even in a 2.5-hour meeting. And so I think, as you both said, this is basically what we would have expected from a first Trump-Putin meeting.
Well, except the fact that we have a Secretary of State who seems to be staggering around without a clue. And I think that's going to be an issue as the Trump administration goes forward. What is the deal with Rex Tillerson? He seems to be marching not necessarily to his own drummer. He doesn't seem to have a drummer.
And not to mention, or we shouldn't forget, a recipient of the Friend of Russia Award from President Vladimir Putin. So the fact that he was in the meeting and National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster, bit more of a hawk, bit more of a skeptic of Russia, was not, tells you a lot of what you need to know about Trump's approach to Russia.
Sure. I think that Putin has to be happy. He has been one of the most important people in the world politics for the last 20 years now, largely on his own doing, and this has been kind of one of Russia's long-time dilemmas is how will the West take us seriously, and Putin really has done that for whatever the other costs. I mean, he really has, and I think this meeting is yet another extension of his influence.
Right.
Yeah. He wants people to pay attention to him, and he wants the world to pay attention to Russia. We talked earlier about all the nationalistic parts of his culture, that the religion that he's bringing back. Well, this is part of it. They want respect. We don't sometimes understand that as Americans, but the North Koreans want, in their own crazy way, respect. Putin and the Russians want respect.
Iran, to a great deal. They're driving forward with nuclear weapons and their place in the Middle East.
You're going to listen to me, and metaphorically, you're going to return my phone call.
Yeah, right. That's a great way of thinking about it. Now, one of the other elements of this trip to Europe was a G20 summit. We'll skip over the controversy about Ivanka Trump sitting in her dad's seat for one of the meetings. If you think that's a big deal, I want to hear why you think it's a big deal. Email me, freshtake1150@gmail.com. I don't think that's such a big deal because, frankly, I don't think a lot gets done at the G20. A lot of these meetings don't really matter much. So, Arnie, let's start with you. Impressions on the G20. Does it have a role in the 21st century? Is it doing anything?
Well, I think it does have some value in the sense that you do get heads of state together. They do have to talk directly to one another. You can head off some economic problems potentially. I don't look to them as producing like ground-shaking change, but it does give people a direct line to each other, which is something like the UN really hasn't done very well.
That's a great point.
This is one way to get leaders of important economic countries together.
Right. I mean, it's a talk fest. It's too big a group to. It's unwieldy. It's not going to come to any major decisions. But look, Trump and Putin actually got together face to face, sort of in a side room at the G20. So I think it had some validity there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk coming out of the G20 about American isolation on trade issues, on environmental issues, and I don't feel as strongly about that because the United States, almost by definition, can't be isolated. And when I heard the word isolated, I was reminded of a joke in Great Britain. Another country that in the old days certainly took itself very seriously. Supposedly there was a mock headline in a British paper, fog blankets English Channel, Europe isolated. And and I thought about that, and I don't think it's possible for the United States to be isolated on any issue.
Yeah, the trending hashtag over the weekend was G19, is pointing to the fact that it was everyone else against us. The final communique from German Chancellor Angela Merkel pointed out that despite America going its own way, the rest of us are going to continue on the Paris Accord and climate issues and sustainability. So there is a sense that a lot of countries are on the same page and Donald Trump's going in a different way. I've heard that described as a lack of American leadership. I'm sure there's a lot of people who would see that as strong American leadership. Arnie, what's your take on that from sort of the government perspective?
I think that, leadership, like you say, can be taken either way. We always want leaders who stand up and take their hits, and while Trump is perhaps doing that.
Yeah.
I think, though, the G20 isn't binding on anyone, and so, yes, and it isn't really a surprise that France and Germany and the other 17 countries would agree on Paris Accords, other deals, because they were kind of part and parcel already to those. In the U.S., with our elected leadership being very different, it was going to change. And I think having a system of government that we have where our leaders do change rather dramatically from one administration to the next, it's not as much of a surprise as there's a change where in those many European countries have kind of a center maybe center-left governments for a very long time, and so their continuity is much higher.
Yeah.
You know, the G20 isn't binding, and neither are the Paris Accords. And we should remember that.
Right, right.
So a lot of this is posturing.
Yes, and promises and words, as you said, a talk fest, which so much of this diplomacy is, and that can be productive, but we shouldn't mistake it for action.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting. All right, so that's going to wrap up our retake of the Trump trip to Europe, the sequel. When we come back, we're going to check in on the progress of healthcare reform in Congress. They're back from their holiday. But don't worry, they're just a couple weeks away from their next vacation, so I'm sure they'll get all kinds of things done before they leave again. We're going to see what Professor Poder and Professor Schober have to say about that. If you've got comments for us, we welcome you to be a part of the show as well. 281-1150 is the phone number outside Appleton. Use our TDS Metrocom toll-free line, 1-866-887-1150. You can email me, freshhtake1150@gmail.com. You can tweet at me, at Josh Duclo, or check us out online. Watch us live on video at WHBY.com under our live video tab, or on Facebook at the WHBY Facebook page. More to come with the professors on Fresh Take today on WHBY. And welcome back to Fresh Take, this hour brought to you by Hooper Law Office. Find them in Appleton, Green Bay, or Oshkosh, or find them online at hooperlawoffice.com. Hooper Law Office, providing a pathway to your legacy. We've got Professor Poder and Professor Schober with us today, and we were talking Trump in Europe and the foreign policy. We're going to bring it domestic now and check in Congress on health care reform. Congress is back from their 4th of July holiday break, and just weeks until their August recess, where they're gone for literally the entire month of August, although there's some rumblings now
not
that
so fast.
Perhaps maybe they'll delay it or cut it short. It would be really egregious, and I'm sure they'd get even more of an earful than they already are going to, if they were to leave Congress again without getting anything done. So, Jerry, do you think that's going to put enough pressure
I think that
on
actually is going to happen.
Okay.
It has a very good chance of happening for two reasons.
And what is that? Getting health care done? Or just
first of all,
delaying the recess?
Yeah, but first, to leave without a bill is going to look very bad.
Okay.
Second, when they go home, what they're going to get is organized mobs, basically, at these town hall meetings, which I think have pretty much outlived their usefulness. So do they really want to go home without a bill, to have people screaming and demonstrating in their town halls and even making physical threats against them? I think they'd rather stay in Washington, which is really saying something, given what Washington is like in August.
Yeah, good point about the weather. It's incredibly unpleasant in D.C. in August. I've been there.
Yeah,
Now, Arnie, I thought about this the other day, right? This notion that we've got Representative Mike Gallagher talking about this, President Trump tweeted about this. Many politicians are saying perhaps we need to rethink this August recess if we aren't getting our work done. Maybe this is as much about avoiding constituents as it is about keeping your nose to the grindstone.
It certainly is possible. I mean, we have, like Jerry mentioned, we have seen kind of an increase in organized town hall demonstrations, but this time, instead of getting people, well, you'd get them too, but upset about repealing Obamacare, you would also get the Tea Party folks who say, look, we elected you, we kept you in Congress, and yet you can't get a single thing done about this big promise that you've made. And I think the recess is there to connect with constituents, but quite frankly, in this day and age, it's not nearly as necessary as it might have been in 1880.
Yeah,
Right.
given the technology.
There are other ways to connect.
Right.
We talked about Twitter. In 1948, Harry Truman, accepting the Democratic nomination for re-election for the presidency and facing an uphill battle, famously called Congress back into session.
Wow.
He called him back, but this time he was a Democratic president and a Republican Congress. But so there is precedent for Congress foregoing its recess. And at this point, under these circumstances, my recommendation would be, for the reasons that we've discussed, that they do so.
Right. So we do have, looking at this reform package as a policy-making exercise, it seems to this point the goal has been to put together whatever bill can get just enough votes to pass. It's not about fixing specific problems. It's not about advancing a certain agenda. It's about getting a bill passed that they can call a repeal of Obamacare. To that end, Ted Cruz, senator from Texas, has put forward a proposal saying, all right, here's a plan. As long as an insurance provider has one plan that meets the Obamacare requirements, they can offer any number of other plans that don't. Therefore, you're not taking anything away from anyone. We're still providing what you have now, but we're giving people additional options. On the other extreme, you have Bernie Sanders, the socialist senator from Vermont. He's talking about Medicare for all. And so from a policymaking standpoint, Arnie, where do you think this reform effort kind of falls? Is there a middle ground here? Is there a clear path forward?
No.
That's just that simple. Yeah.
That's the short answer. I think part of the big problem is a political problem in that the Senate is so closely balanced that you give the senators on the edges of both caucuses a lot more power than they would have with a larger majority or a smaller minority, right? And so Mitch McConnell has to deal with Ted Cruz and Susan Collins from Maine, both of whom are kind of on opposite sides of the Republican caucus and probably won't agree on very much with health care. Right. But he can't afford to lose either one of them, and so he really has to put together a bill that does something, but it's not going to repeal Obamacare. It will probably add things to it and take some things away. Yeah. He's really in a pickle because of the tight balance in the Senate.
Yeah, I agree with Arnie. Looking at this, my word to describe this is oi. Because there doesn't seem to be any way to get the conservative Republican faction and what we'd call the moderate or establishment Republican factions together, because they're looking for different things. The conservatives are looking for lower premiums. They're willing to accept lower levels of coverage. Right. They want lower taxes. They want lower regulations. The moderate or establishment Republicans are afraid of cutting Medicaid. They want pre-existing conditions covered, all the kinds of things that are going to cost more money. So I think in many ways it's an almost unbridgeable divide. And I think Democrats are counting on Republicans like Susan Collins to peel off here. Just as, and I was thinking about this last week, following what's going on in Illinois, the Illinois budget crisis, which has now been at least ended for the moment.
Ostensibly resolved,
ostensibly, not really resolved. I mean, raise taxes, kick the can down the road, and continue with unsustainable entitlements. But what happened there is a number of Republicans finally caved, and they went along with the Democrats. And the reason they caved would be the same reason that a Susan Collins would cave. People saying, you don't care about poor people, you don't care about coverage, you want people to die in the streets, et cetera, et cetera. It happened in Illinois, and it probably is going to happen in Washington.
And a few of the other possible candidates for peeling off from the Republican caucus would be Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski, Nevada Senator Dean Heller, up for a re-election in a state Hillary Clinton won in 2016, so he's been a big target in this conversation. And then you've got those Republicans on the more conservative end of the spectrum, Ted Cruz, Utah Senator Mike Lee.
Who don't have to worry about re-election.
Right.
And, you know, in the middle of this, Donald Trump has been useless. And I think it should be said at this point. There's no leadership. There is no way that a Susan Collins looking at re-election, or Heller in Nevada is saying, well, maybe Donald Trump will come into the state and help me, because they don't even want them in the state.
And to that end, Donald Trump's Political Action Committee immediately started running ads against Dean Heller when he came out against the bill. It seems to me the White House is in favor of passing a bill. They don't really care what's in the bill. They just want the bill passed. So to that end, their goals align with Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, who just want to get a bill passed. The question is, what will that bill actually do? And what effect will it have on people? And the more we learn about the effects these bills would have, the less popular they get.
Right.
So part of the rhetoric around healthcare has come to this question about whether or not healthcare is a right. And we talked about this a little bit on the show yesterday. I poked the bee's hive a little bit in talking about my personal belief that healthcare is not a right. Access to healthcare could be considered a right, but the healthcare itself is not a right. I'm curious if you guys have an opinion on that based on the definition of what rights are or based on the nature of healthcare. Jerry, do you have thoughts on that?
Well, historically, in 1944, President Roosevelt gave a famous speech called the Second Bill of Rights speech. And in this speech, he put that issue on the table. The first Bill of Rights, if we look at the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, they're all procedural rights. You have the right to a trial by jury, you have a right to bear arms, et cetera, et cetera. They're much more in the way of procedure. But what Roosevelt was talking about, and there's nothing in the Constitution that says you have a right to health care or a job or an income. What Roosevelt was putting forth was the possibility that these would be considered American rights. He died in 1945, and these proposals didn't go very far. But we now have the same question, especially in terms of the Obamacare legislation. Is this now a right rather than a piece of legislation that can be taken away?
Right.
And I think that will divide Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives. That might be one of the basic dividing issues. Is something like health care a right, or is it a privilege, so to speak, that can be withdrawn?
Yeah, I even made the comparison, is it a right or is it just basically an entitlement, right? If the government's going to mandate it be provided to you, that's not necessarily a right. That's an entitlement. That's something the government says we will provide to you, not because you have an inherent right to it, but because we think you should have it. Those are different things. And when you're talking policy making, I think those distinctions matter. Arnie, do you have thoughts on this distinction?
I think one of the things often lost in this healthcare debate or debacle, right, is that they're talking about insurance. They're not actually talking about health care.
Yes.
And if I can pay you, if I can pay your doctor for you to go to see your doctor, the doctor's happy about this, but you may be no more or less healthy. They've done some preliminary studies about especially emergency room access, and they found that it's kind of a wash or maybe even slightly negative.
Right.
And so when we think about health care as a right, usually maybe the people talking about that are talking about, well, maybe I'll be healthier. But what the government's proposing, left and right, is that we'll provide access to insurance that will pay someone else to look at you.
Right.
And that may or may not translate to anything beneficial. So if we were to kind of codify something that said health care or being healthy is a right, now we have a big problem that the courts will have a field day with.
Yeah.
Because what's the appropriate level of health? I don't know.
And this all ties back to personal responsibility. And if you spend your life noshing fast food and chugging soda, do I, someone who chooses to live a healthier lifestyle, have an obligation to pay to keep you healthy when you're doing nothing to contribute to your own health? You know, all of these factors here weigh in when you're talking about something as a right to health care. You're saying you have a right to someone else's skill set, to someone else's property or someone else's time. And I don't know that that's how rights work necessarily. A right would be a freedom from something, as you talked about, Professor Poder, the freedom from illegal search and seizure, or the right to have a jury of your peers. That's different than asserting a right to something like health care.
Right. But, you know, if you track the Bill of Rights and you track the amendments to the Constitution, we are now going in more of a direction of freedom to rather than freedom from. And once you start with freedom to, then adequate health care might be considered that kind of right. And as Arnie says, the courts will have a field day with, you know, in some states there is a right to an adequate education.
Right.
And Arnie, as an expert on the education, knows about that and knows what the courts have done in terms of parsing and interpreting the word adequate.
Well, we've got an interesting example about the lengths to which state-run healthcare can go, and this comes to us from the UK.
Yep.
This is the story about Charlie Gard, the infant who suffers from genetic diseases, has said there's been no chance of recovery. The courts in the UK have ordered an end to his care and have gone so far as to say his parents can't take him out of the country to pursue care elsewhere. Is this what nationalized healthcare means, or is this just one example about one case that we can't necessarily draw lessons from? We're going to get the perspective from the professors on that when we come back. And as always, you're welcome to be a part of the show. 281-1150 is the phone number. Email me, freshtake1150@gmail.com. More with the professors to wrap up Fresh Take today, right after this on WHBY. Welcome back to Fresh Take. I'm your host, Josh Duclo. We've got the professors with us, and Joe is on the line calling from Neenah. Joe, what's on your mind this morning?
Just want to make the distinction between rights and needs. You know, we need a definition. You know, that we live in a great country, and simply because we live in a great country, we think we should provide everything for us. There's a difference between responsibility and abilities in this nation, and we got to distinguish the differences. We shouldn't let the government dictate to us everything that we have a need of.
Yeah, that's a great point, Joe. That need to highlight individual responsibility in the light of the expectation that government provides so much for us, which has almost become an unspoken undercurrent in American culture.
Right. Needs and desires do not necessarily equate to rights.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do, but not always.
Yeah. Interesting take. Thanks for the phone call, Joe. Okay, so Charlie Gard is coming at a time when in this country we're debating the role of the federal government in a healthcare system. In the UK, they have a national health system. It is a single-payer, government-run healthcare system. Now, keep in mind, there's also a private healthcare system that if you have the money and can afford it, you can use yourself. Most people fall into the NHS, the National Health System. And as you pointed out, Jerry, it's not even a UK court. It's a European court that has made this call on ending care for little 11-month-old Charlie Gard.
Right. That's another another issue. First of all, this ends up in the British courts, but it ultimately ends up in the European courts. So a European judge is basically telling the parents of this child that your child is going to die. It's bad enough that an English court would do that, but at this point, a European court is telling them to do this. Yeah. I think this is a lesson and a warning for Americans who think that a universal single-payer healthcare system will solve all our problems. It will solve some of our problems, but it will not solve all of our problems. And one of the problems that it will not solve is the impact of government on the doctor-patient relationship. Now, the government, of course, still even today, even without a single-payer system, impacts the patient-doctor relationship. But under a single-payer system, it would almost obviate that relationship, and I think we can see this with the Charlie Gard case.
Yeah, this is sort of comes to the notion of rationing care. This is one of those sort of hot button words in a healthcare debate. When you talk about rationing care, you're starting to allow bureaucrats or other people than the patient and the doctor to make decisions about what care is allowed to be rendered to that patient. So I'd said on the show yesterday that, the thing with nationalized healthcare is you're rationing care. Someone emailed in to say every system rations care. It's just how you do it. Do you do it by government decision or do you do it by price? We ration care in America by price. If you can afford certain treatments, you can get it. The question is, should the government then fund every treatment someone wants to get? Arnie, thoughts on this bigger question about government influencing healthcare decisions for individuals and families?
Excuse me. Well, like you said, they already do this. There's a massive amount of regulation now about things you can and cannot do at a hospital or with your doctor, how you pay for it. Medicaid is already subject to these kinds of things. The Veterans Administration already, and that insurance system does. I think really the bigger question with the UK case is that the courts ruled that the parents couldn't take the child out of the country. And for their politics, the question is, when does an individual gain the right to move? Right, and under most, to talk about Trump Western systems, right, there is a right that an individual can move and leave the country if they want. And in this case, the courts said this child could not leave the country, which seemed to be kind of a breach of that liberty that many in certainly the English system have taken for granted for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Yeah. And that was more troubling to me, because the healthcare question about payment, we get that if it's not the government, it's the insurance company that turns you down. And that we already have that. It's just who's doing it.
Generally, Americans don't like to be told what to do. And in a single-payer healthcare system, they will be told what to do. They will obviously get health care, and many people will get health care that they normally would not have, ordinarily would not be getting. But Americans will be told exactly what to do, and historically, Americans have not responded well to that.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we should be thinking about as we contemplate a single-payer system.
Yeah, I agree. The case of Charlie Gard grabs attentions and tugs at the heartstrings because we're talking about an 11-month-old little boy. I think this kind of conversation, this question about how much care is worth putting into someone who's near the end of their life, happens all the time with older people, right? So much of our healthcare system and the cost of healthcare goes into extending the end of life for people. And this is where, if we wanted to get serious about getting healthcare costs under control, that's one conversation we need to have.
But we're going to be taking choice away from families,
Right.
And you're going to have someone from above, whether it's a government bureaucrat or administrator, telling someone, your parent, your mother or father, going to die.
Yeah, with the responsibility to pay comes the freedom to choose, and vice versa. All right, the wonderful conversation today with Professor Jerry Poder of the History Department at Lawrence University and Professor Arnie Schober of the Government Department. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here once again.
My pleasure.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. We'll have you back in just a few weeks. And that'll do it for us today on Fresh Take. If you've got more thoughts you want to share with me, I always look forward to your emails, freshtake1150@gmail.com, freshtake1150@gmail.com, or you can tweet at me at Josh Duclo. We've got a real treat for you coming up next. Guess what? Our own Zach Morris is hosting the Good Neighbor Show, so stick around.